Welcome to the second session in our attempt to understand this very significant, perhaps most significant feature of our political condition with immense consequence for the future, both short term and long term. In the previous video, I set out the context for our inquiry as well as introduced one of the 5 points that I wanted to include in that video, but since time got out of hand, I had to decide to break the material and turn this into 2 videos, and therefore the present session. In the previous video, I introduced the contrast between Sri Narendra Modi's magic and Rahul's logic, and there I dealt somewhat elaborately with the contrast that involves the emphasis on the spectacle in Modi's magic and contrasted that with the emphasis on experience in Rahul's logic. I'm not going to repeat any of those arguments. I just wanted to establish the continuity, which I hope is done. And I'm sure that my viewers, being very discerning, serious-minded, and keen in their understanding, do not need any further aid to memory or any attempt to recapitulate the substance already shared. Let's now proceed to the second major point of contrast between Modi magic and Rahul logic. And that is, the Modi magic is centered not only heavily but exclusively on me. No one could have missed the ponderous reality, the heavy reality, that in the last 10 years, for better for worse, the whole country was filled with just one person. India was Modi, Modi was India. You couldn't turn left or right, look to the front or turn to the back without seeing Modi. You couldn't keep your ears open without hearing Modi, 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 or Modi, 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 or Namo, 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 Namo. And Modi was with you in your home, in every aspect of your life, even in your ailment, disease, like the pandemic, COVID, vaccination certificate, etc. So this is an important aspect of creating and sustaining the Modi magic. Now, if you imagine a context of magic, you will find that the total focus of the people, everyone within that environment, is on just one person, the magician. Even if there are other people to help him around, help the magician around, they are not allowed to be visible. The gadgets, the accoutrements, the accessories used will be on stage. But you rarely see someone other than the magician on the stage. The exception, of course, is, for example, there is a magic by which a magician cuts a living person into two and then puts them together. So that victim, the magical guinea pig, will be there. But you know the difference between the magician and the magical guinea pig. So you understand what I mean. And the whole affair of the total life of this country was managed in this manner over the last decade. There was Modi, Modi, and only Modi, and more of Modi in everything. This was your experience. I don't have to say a word about it. Therefore, I'm not going to say any further word about it. In contrast, within the Rahul logic, the emphasis shifts to its opposite. You matter. In the me model, you don't matter. You don't even exist. In the Rahul logic, which is the democratic logic, if at all there is a logic conducive to democracy, it is this logic, you matter. Otherwise, how does it become a government of the people, by the people, especially for the people? And this matter was somewhat debated in relation to the last 10 years as to what extent it was a government for the people, or as it was repeatedly said by the Modi critics, it was a government for the corporate captains of this country. It's a debate I don't want to engage. Since it's been bandied back and forth, I'll just flag this to indicate that the emphasis, the focal point was not the common man, not the people of India. Of that, I don't have the slightest doubt. Yes, the Aam Aadmi, the Awam of the country, the people of the country was referred to, was invoked rhetorically and strategically many times, but that was merely to embellish the heavy me emphasis in the characteristic patented Modi brand of politics. So again, it's a subject that needs to be elaborately dealt with, but I'm not going to stay on. I'm not going to linger on with topics because I don't want to add one more video to this series. This will be the second and the last. Let's therefore proceed. So far we have covered two important points of contrast. The first was the shift from spectacle to experience as we move from Modi magic to Rahul logic. The second is the shift from me to you, me the leader to you the people. That is me the people, which is the heart of the Rahul logic. Now let's look at the third important point of contrast, or if you like, the third important shift as we move from one model, one paradigm to the other. The Modi magic ripples with power. Underline the word power. Every attempt was made to make the common man, the citizen of India, to feel as powerfully and intensely as possible the power of Modi. His very presence radiated power. And everything about the country was designed to make the citizen of India feel the power of Modi, his very presence. And various strategies were used. I don't want to recount them because it's rather cumbersome. I'll give you just an indication. Look at this idea that with Modi, everything is possible. Modi hai to sab mumkin hai. Modi hai to sab mumkin. Not many people realize it is a statement that ripples with power. Power. What is power? Power is felt only in terms of the impact. And impact means making a difference. And power is felt most keenly when the impossible is made possible. So, the statement that Modi hai to sab mumkin hai, or if there is Modi, everything is possible, was not really uttered, not merely aired or broadcast to the people as a statement of reassurance, but as an affirmation of the Modi magic. Now, if nothing is impossible for Modi, then surely he merits the divine status, because in every religion in the world, this idea that nothing is impossible is attached or connected only to the divine. So when a whole jing-bang lot people repeatedly say to you that nothing is impossible for Modi, everything is possible with Modi, and it is dinned into you day in and day and night, poor you are inclined to believe that Sri Narendra Damodar Das Modi is indeed God. And we have seen the apotheosis of that process a few months ago when Modi himself said that he is not of biological origin and that he has a divine mission. So he is divine in his engagement with India, which is then amplified 1,000 times by a Modi Bhakt called Sambit Patra, who mercifully is now not seen very commonly on television screens, who said that Jagannath, the Lord of the whole universe, is only a Modi fan. Do you want a statement of greater significance, greater scope and reach than that? No, you can't even imagine. I can't imagine. So that is the extent to which this idea of power was pulled and pushed. Or look at the other aspect of this whole cult of power. The idea that India will go and attack Pakistan. There are times when Pakistan deserves to be attacked, maybe. I have no opinion on this matter because I am not a military strategist. If the Indian Army tells me that they have to intervene heavily in Pakistan in order to dismantle the centers of terror, I believe it with my eyes closed. I have no problem with it. But for a politician to say, "Khar khar ghuskar marega," we will enter every Pakistani house and bash them up. First of all, it was not done. Secondly, it cannot be done because Pakistan is also a nuclear power. Third, there is no need to do it. But it was said repeatedly to millions and millions of people, and the media covered it far and wide. It was brought home to the bosom of every Indian, and people really experienced a kind of patriotic consummation, so to speak. It's magic. It's not meant to be a statement of fact. It cannot be done. And I know, to the extent that I know Sri Narendra Modi, he is also a thinking man. He's a rational person. I'm sure he knew that when he said it in a rhetorical fashion in a particular context with a certain aim in mind, he knew that it was simply not possible. And he did not mean it. And that's an important aspect of the logic of magic, in the sense that what is showcased in magic is not meant to be turned into reality. That's the most fundamental thing that every Indian needs to know. What is included, or what is packaged as magic, is not meant to be turned into a reality in the life of the people. It is there showcased and projected as a very enthralling or inspiring, euphoric spectacle. That's it, nothing more. There will be no outcome from magic. It will give you a moment of great exhilaration, if you like, a feeling of high, but that's it. Nothing will eventuate, nothing will come out of it for you and me as common citizens of India. So that's the power logic. As against the power paradigm that the Modi magic is situated on, you have the love logic in the Rahul model. Therefore, he is being logically consistent in saying that my mission is to open Prem Ki Dukan, outlets of love in the subcontinent of hate. Now, the power paradigm has to depend heavily on hate, because the genius of power is in controlling people. And you can control people only, there's only one method, one strategy for controlling people: divide and control. Pit one against the other, and then project oneself as the messiah. There's nothing new about it. This technique has been practiced for at least 4,000 years. There's nothing, it's not Modi's invention or somebody else's invention in our generation. This is simply borrowed from from past history. So power, the genius of power is in controlling people, whereas the genius of love is in discovering people, affirming their worth, and empowering them. And that is, the process of empowering people can be undertaken only in a state of complete solidarity with the people. You have to identify yourself with the people. You have to be the people. Now, you would ask me, what about this whole emphasis on development in the Modi idea of politics? My dear friends, development can be displayed or deployed either in the magic paradigm or in the logic paradigm. In the magic paradigm, development is a big spectacle, a series of big events which are managed so efficiently. It is a matter of creating, sustaining this illusion that great things are happening, that we are on the brink of absolute greatness, And the people will not be participants in that process, the people will only be spectators to that process. Whereas in the logic, or the Rahul logic paradigm, which is a paradigm of love. I am not saying this, that's what he himself is saying, and he has said it consistently, particularly in the context of his 2 yatras. And I have no basis for distrusting the sincerity of that averment or that statement. Okay, love. He is trying to effect a paradigm shift from power to love. And since I am also a theologian, I have to say that every religion in the world, including Hinduism, every religion in the world ultimately boils down to this pattern: shift your foundation from power to love. Because power is the reason for the misery of the world. Power breeds inequality, power breeds cruelty, power needs violence to validate itself, and power spells doom and destruction on gigantic scales. And power makes peaceful coexistence impossible. Impossible. That's the reason, my friends, the history of mankind is basically the history of wars, history of conflicts, so on and so forth. Well, think of the recent example. The Second World War was fought with the drum roll of the Churchillian rhetoric, Winston Churchill, who said that the Second World War was a war to end all wars and to make the world safe for peace. Wars ended. After the Second War, there have been at least 300 different wars. The only difference is that Europe and North America remained comparatively troubled, safe from these wars. These wars were all staged in theaters far away, mostly in African, Asian countries. So I am reminded of a statement by St. Augustine in his book, The City of God, where he says, people will preach peace and prepare for war at the same time. People will preach peace and prepare for war at the same time. Why? Because what appeals to the most is power, though their interests are least secure within the paradigm of power, and there is a perverse logic at work in the nature of man. Therefore, I would suggest to Rahul that if he really wants to turn his paradigm into a felt reality in this country, he has to also engage with the perversity of human nature, or this particular streak in human nature, by which there seems to be a natural inclination to violence, to power, to cruelty, and therefore a program of re-educating the mind of India and reconfiguring the culture of India so as to orientate it away from power, cruelty, violence, hatred, domination, etc., towards love, peace, joy, harmony, peaceful coexistence, and rejoicing in the goodness of each other, which certainly is ultimately more conducive to the benefit, the progress of India. Again, this is a huge subject, but time does not allow me to linger. Let me move on, because I've got 2 more points to deal with. So far we dealt with 3. The shift from spectacle to experience, the shift from me to you, the shift from power to love. Right? Now let's look at the 4th one. In the magic model, the main emphasis, in fact, the exclusive emphasis is on, or the obsession is with having. Now, in Malayalam, for example, a person who is worth a lakh of rupees is called a lord. A lord. A person who is worth a crore is called God. Having, the power of having. This also comes under is related to the previous pattern I have been dealing with, namely the shift from power to love. Now, let's continue that reflection into this pattern also. Why do you love power? Power is an abstract thing. You love power only because power enables you to have more and more, and therefore, wherever power is worshipped and wherever power is accorded extra and enlarged respect and worth, you must expect corruption. I don't know why this is not understood. To worship power is also to worship corruption. Why? Because power is nothing but the power to do the unlawful thing. Haven't you seen the powerful in India breaking traffic rules and getting away with it? When they break the rule and get away with it without any consequence, they have a great sense of power. And those who are with him really look up to him with great respect. Whereas if you are a true Democrat, you will despise him. Because democracy swears by, stands by, lives by equality. Whereas this power-driven having mode, accumulation, etc., determining the worth of a person in terms of what he has, billionaires. India's greatest excitement is that we are now full of billionaires. If we have 10 times more billionaires than we have at the moment, of what use is that to you and to me? Zilch. If anything, is a cause to worry because these billionaires are thriving at the expense of the common man. That's where a lot of behind the scene politicking is going on, underwriting the debts and even jeopardizing the viability of the banking system, writing off the liabilities of these almighty billionaires to the extent of 20 lakh crores of rupees in terms of taxes they should have paid to the government, so on and so forth, all done very quietly. Whereas if a small crumb is given to alleviate the suffering of the poor farmer, the poor worker, so on and so forth, it is made much of, and our very enlightened economists, experts in economy will come and with great indignation damn the fiscal irresponsibility of the government in wasting national resources with no assured returns. Whereas if you give lakhs and lakhs of crores of rupees to the captains of industry, then you are actually making an investment that might bring returns, God alone knows when. Okay, that's a subject I don't want to enter into. Perhaps you are better informed on this than I am. What I'm saying is that this logic of having is the logic of magic. And you gaze with wonder and amazement at an Adani and Ambani, whereas you treat a fellow human being with comparative contempt because you are under the spell of that magic. I've been able to break that spell of magic in relation to myself. Honest to God, if I see a billionaire, I wouldn't even look at him because what does that mean to me? His being a billionaire is bad for him. He'll have to pay the consequences of that. There are many instances in our corporate sector. I don't want to deal with those persons. You are aware of them. People think it's a great thing. It's heaven to be a billionaire. No, it's also hell. More of that on another occasion, perhaps. So, when we move from the Modi magic, which is built on having, for example, the culture of having becomes, in relation to the public perception, the culture of showing off. There, status symbols are of extreme importance. So it's a great thing that our Prime Minister is moving around in a Boeing 777, which costs approximately 3,000 crores, maybe something between 3,000 and 4,000 crores, with all the subsequent expenses implied in it. The Prime Minister's retinue, the Prime Minister's security, the Prime Minister's costume, the Prime Minister's movement, Prime Minister's this, the Prime Minister's that. Imelda Marcos, the wife of the dictator in Philippines, was ridiculed for her elaborate wardrobe. Reportedly, she had 3,000 pairs of shoes. But all that did not really mean anything to her or to her husband at the time of their travail. Everything became a point of embarrassment. So it doesn't take much time for pride to turn into embarrassment in the having mode. Now, if you think of the spectacles of the 1789 French Revolution, that revolution was triggered by the common man's extreme indignation and anger against the parasitical rich class, the shall I say, the feudal lords, barons, etc., who cornered all the wealth. And at the point of being attacked, their wealth became their liability. Even today, a common man is a lot safer than a rich man. I don't have to fear burglars because there's nothing in my house that can be taken away by thieves. Some thieves visited me recently and they enriched themselves to the tune of 2 ladders I had. They took it, and the 2 ladders together would cost perhaps 4,000 rupees. So they became richer by 4,000 rupees. That's a shock I can absorb. I don't have to have security personnel around me. My wife and I, old people, were living alone without any sense of insecurity here. When I came here, some people advised me to have surveillance cameras installed everywhere. This was 8 years ago. I don't have a single surveillance camera. I don't think I need one because if a thief is foolish enough to break into my house, very likely he will leave something behind. So what I'm saying is, this idea of impressing people with this mighty display of exotic wealth is counterpointed with the idea of being. How does Rahul move around? In the costume of an ordinary man, a pair of trousers and a t-shirt, white t-shirt, that's all. Whereas Shri Narendra Modi changes his costume 3 times a day at least, and there's a whole staff of people, whole group of staff to take care of his appearance. Rahul doesn't have any such headache. He doesn't need it either. He just moves around and people are attracted towards him to an extent that you would actually find very hard to believe. People underestimate him. In one of my previous videos, I made a reference to the visit he made to St. Stephen's College, invited by me when I was principal there. And I thought, and this was prior to his debut speech in the Parliament, so I thought, my students will be bored. After all, he's not known to be a great speaker, and my students in St. Stephen's College are used to great speakers. So I thought this would be a non-event. But I was in for a huge surprise. Rahul just came in and he began to speak. The whole audience was jam-packed. And with each word, he actually walked into the hearts of the people. And I could see my students holding on to him to an extent I've never seen with respect to any other speaker. We have had many speakers, foreign and Indian, but I've never seen the kind of emotional attachment Rahul Gandhi created in just one visit. So then itself I knew that there was something in this man, and therefore when he was being ridiculed in public, I also used to laugh within me. Okay. So having versus being. While In the Modi magic, the obsession is with having. In the Rahul Gandhi logic, the emphasis is on being. And in this emphasis, in this model, there is no greed, there is no need to grab and hoard and become wealthy and mighty. And particularly, and that's a saving feature, which is again misunderstood by most Indians, in this model of being, there is no attachment to power. So when Rahul Gandhi refuses to accept positions of power, you must understand this in the right perspective. Within the paradigm that he embodies, attachment to office of power and profit is anathema, as in the case of Mahatma Gandhi. Why is it that in the case of Mahatma Gandhi, we consider that in a very positive light, and the very same thing in relation to Rahul Gandhi is picked up as a point of ridicule? I don't understand this. If anyone does, please explain that to me and I'll be grateful. That's the fourth point. The fifth and the final point, and I have to be brief about it because it's already 30 minutes. The paradigm of magic is characterized by fixity, whereas the model of logic is characterized by resilience. The Modi magic is based on the fixity of the person, the inflexibility. He will not move left or right. If Modi says a word, that's it. Good, bad, indifferent, don't ask a question. He has said it, this is what he said, there it is. It is what it is. As Donald Trump says, it is what it is. Fixity. As against that, you have Rahul Gandhi's flexibility. If you've been following the events in India in the last 10 years, you will see the extent to which Rahul Gandhi has changed. In the fixity model, the person will never change. He will stay the same thing. To use an image from the Irish poet William Butler Yeats, he will be like a stone in the midst of the living waters. A stone which remains fixed, unmoving, insensitive to the surroundings. A fixed stone in the midst of a running stream. Whereas the Rahul logic is the running stream itself. People who don't know this will ridicule him on the point of seeming inconsistency, as though repeating the same thing for 50 years is a great achievement. Now you tell me, what I understood when I was a young man of 30 and what I understand now should be the same? If both have to be the same, it means that I wasted 40 years. That's what it means. No, I will change because I was living. I was not dead. I was not a stone in the midst of running stream. I've changed my understanding very radically in many respects. I've changed my stand. I've changed my outlook. I've changed my worldview. So that sometimes people, my own critics, accuse me of being inconsistent. No. If you grow, you will change. There's no doubt about it. And that's why when Mahatma Gandhi was asked why he changed his position in relation to religion and politics, he said, yes, I've changed my view. You take my latest view. That's the truth. So there is nothing wrong about changing your views. In fact, there is everything wrong about not changing your views in the face of compelling evidence to the contrary. That's called being dogmatic, opinionated, fixed, and incapable of dealing with the reality around you. It's not a strength, it's a weakness, for God's sake. The logic of life is the logic of resilience. It's not that you tamely agree with everyone and everything. It is that as you move along the road of life, your perceptions change, as they indeed must, and you understand more and more. Your mental and cognitive horizons widen, as they must. And in the context of all of that, you make appropriate changes in your attitude, in your strategies, in the way you relate to others, to the country, and so on and so forth, and the way you present to the world. All of that has happened. Rahul Gandhi has changed a great deal since the time he made his debut appearance on the political scene of India. That's important. So, friends, I have identified 5 different aspects of the shift from the Modi magic to the Rahul logic. I leave it to you to decide which is the better strategy for life, which is more akin to life, the magical model or the logical model. I quickly recapitulate the 5 points of contrast in the interest of clarity, brevity, without offering a single word of explanation now. The shift from spectacle to experience, number 1. Number 2, the shift from me to you. It's beautiful. Number 3, the shift from power to love. 4th, the shift from having, grabbing, drawing everything to oneself, to being, where one is completely liberated from the obsession with grabbing, hoarding, accumulating, and particularly annexing offices of power and holding on to it with neurotic, compulsive attachment. And finally, the shift from fixity to resilience, which is the logic of life. So I leave it to you. And I have to add the concluding note saying that I developed this contrast not at all to disadvantage anyone. I offer these thoughts to you in order to invite you humbly to think in relation to the realities that impinge on your own life. I'm not bringing material or data or substance from the other side of the moon. We are looking at the world in which we are living, what's called the lived life, the lived world, the world in which we are living, trying to make sense of a contrast, which is something that you and I did not discover, create, or popularize. It was created, institutionalized, and popularized by the Modi camp with tremendous, elaborate, mammoth, humongous efforts, the like of which I have never seen before. And therefore, we are more than justified in looking at this contrast now in light of the changing and changed circumstance. What perhaps the Modi bhakts did not realize is that change is the logic of history, life, and nature. Nothing remains stationary in life, in history, and in nature. And therefore, insofar as great changes have actually happened, changes that cannot be arrested, frozen, or paralyzed in time, we are well within our rights to reflect on all of this, the entire spectacle that has been presented to us in such elaborate detail and with such puissant presentation. We have every right to reflect on this phenomenon from our perspective so that we are enriched by these thoughts. The idea is not to develop negativity towards anyone at all. It should not be. The idea is to be clearer about the context in which we are, which is our basic need, and to be able, to the extent that democracy arms and equips us with the power and the freedom or right to choose, to use our own sense of reality in exercising this precious franchise, the power to choose, so that the choices that we make will conduce to the health and wholeness of Indian democracy. That's clearly the aim with which I put together these thoughts, and I'm sure you're mature enough to relate to them and make use of them in the same spirit. Thank you very much, and may all the good things of life come to you, and may God bless and prosper India. God bless India. Jai Hind.